Hey everybody, it's been a week or so, a couple weeks, but I just want to do a quick video really fast. I've actually been recovering from a cold, so I haven't been feeling very well, but I had just a quick thought. While I plan to do some more videos in the future, I just had a quick thought, something that occurred to me. I was in contact with a friend of mine, and I have his permission to give this example. A friend of mine who is a type 8, and it made me think of the difference between type 4 and type 8 with regards to creativity. And he was having some issues with regards to getting to his emotional side, meaning getting to his vulnerable side when it came to his creativity. And he's a sexual 8, so he's very vulnerable. And if you watch that video from the Common Wheel, you'll see the sexual 8 has a lot of commonality with the 4 in that they feel that they're oppressed and they feel like they give to others, or they feel like they're overlooked, rather, because they feel like they do so much for others and no one appreciates them and everyone overlooks them. And so this friend of mine was having some issues with regards to creativity and tapping into his emotional side, because to an 8, when you tap into your emotion or vulnerability, it is a loss of control. It's a loss of power. And for him, writing or art has always been something of the intellect. And because in the intellect is where he feels more comfortable, he feels more in control. And it's so interesting because for me, as a 4, me going to these sad places from my past, I have no problem doing, because for me, it just feels right at home. Me being a 4 and I have the 5 wing right there, I mean, I'm able to just really tap into it. And were it not for the Enneagram, I don't know if I would necessarily really understand what he was going through. So when he told me of this situation, I explained to him the whole dynamic about the type 8. And I've always said, and this is true, any type is capable of becoming an artist, but so many of the artists do tend to be 4s and 5s, I think, because of that heart-mind connection, because of their willingness to delve into the sadness, to delve into their past, to sit back and observe. And so much of writing, when you create that, so much of creativity is sitting back and observing. And it doesn't leave you in a vulnerable place, because now you're putting out your ideas. And so for him, it was always much more constrained, because he was feeling like, if he reached that emotional state, that he wouldn't have the control. Maybe he would lose aspect of his craft, or his form would suffer, things like that. But that was one of the things I mentioned to him, was to, really learn more about his type. And tapping into his emotion is that's a way for type 8 to integrate. And so when he was having his issues, I gave him a list of ideas that he could, which could help him. I said, you need to bring a journal to work. I bring a journal to work. And you write down your thoughts and observations, and they're non-committal. Like, so if they read like crap and they sound stupid, it doesn't matter. It's just written in your journal. You're not committing to anything. It's sort of like, I think it was August Wilson said he used to write on napkins. He'd write his ideas on napkins, and it's a way of not committing to them, because if they sucked, you just throw them away. Something happens with writers, where they're actually sitting down and trying to construct something, and they sit at their computer and they're like, okay, now this is for real, I better be on. And if they don't hit it, they freeze and they freak out. But I said, write in your journal. You write it over and over. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, you don't have to use it. I know for me, therapeutically, I will sometimes rewrite passages just for the act of letting the words go through my mind, and the act of the penmanship. That's just something I do. Pulls me back into that state. But I thought this was interesting, because then, as I've noticed with type 8s, when they want to make a change, they come out, they say I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and he came with this list of things, and I told him, you know, you shouldn't only invest in just your writing or your craft. You need to invest in things that you enjoy. You need to invest in things that nurture your emotion and nurture your soul, and these are things that only you know what they would be. And maybe that's, you know, playing cards. Maybe that's just joining a knitting group. That, you know, for me, like in the mornings, I don't do my writing. I work a later shift. I'm off today, but I work a later shift. So in the mornings, I actually don't do my writing. I do my exercise and I get stuff done because it clears me. Then later, when I have time, I'm thinking in the back of my head and I make my notes. This is what works for me. So I just thought I'd put that out there. Also, the last thing I want to say is that I recently finished the third novel in my India trilogy. It's titled Still Amid the Lotus. And the thing I've noticed with readers when it came to reading my India trilogy versus my Japanese trilogy, which I wrote the Japanese trilogy first, readers have told me that the Japanese trilogy seems to be more cerebral and the India trilogy is more emotional. So they feel more of a connection. It resonates to them on a deeper heart level than, say, maybe my Japanese novels that are more cerebral. And this is not any, you know, anything against the work. This is why you have a writer has multiple works. They write different things in different times, but it's very possible when I wrote my Japanese novels, I was much more tapped into the 5-wing element of my personality. Now, as I've matured more, I can really hone into that that emotional side, that deep emotional longing that I'm not afraid to turn away from. And then from there, I use my, you know, my 5-wing. So the two work very, very well. Not to mention the 3-wing is what propels me, what keeps me forward. I wish my 3-wing was better at knowing how to market myself. I always feel like smarmy ass if I try to do this, but I'm going to have some future videos coming soon. I'm going to do this video. I've said a number of topics. I'm going to do this video on narcissism. That's going to take more notes and more, you know, time to think through. But I also want to do one on the social 4, unhealthy 4, and also maybe some more touching upon the writing process. You know, I just read an article today about this kid who's a prodigy. They say in Belgium, he's 9 years old, he's graduating with a degree, and I go, okay, what's he graduating with? Electrical engineering. I knew it would be something functional. I knew it would be something left-brained. The kid is like a sponge, so he absorbs all this information. And it's interesting because I feel like in culture, the great artists are the ones who are overlooked because no amount of 2,000 IQ you could have doesn't necessarily make you a great artist, because an artist requires that tapping into the vulnerable, the emotion and the intellect together. That is something that is wholly unique. Just, you know, being able to learn a lot of information, absorb all this stuff, that's, you know, that's nice, but in a sense, you're still replaceable. Whereas, you know, Van Gogh isn't replaceable, Beethoven isn't replaceable, Melville is not replaceable. So that's just my thoughts. I just sometimes I feel like the great artists of the world are kind of always shoved aside. Plus, we don't live in a culture that values it. We live in, you know, this popular Harry Potter kind of thing. And if that offends you, well, too bad. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to have more coming soon. It's a lovely Friday afternoon, and I hope you're enjoying it wherever you are, and I thank you for listening. I will be in touch.